Hello guys, welcome to the channel. I hope you had a fantastic Christmas. It's almost the end of 2021, so I thought in this video we'd have a look at what is coming up in 2022 on my channel. Now first of all I need to say a massive thank you to you all for your support in 2021. Thank you to everyone who has watched, who has commented, who has liked, who has subscribed. Your support is hugely appreciated, guys. The channel has grown massively over the last year. We've recently hit 20,000 subscribers, and so I really appreciate all of the feedback and the comments and everything that you guys have been leaving. And of course, a special thanks to my Patreon supporters. These guys give financial support to the channel every month, and it really does help keep the channel going. So a massive thank you to you guys. Now, what's coming up in 2022? Well, I've got a small collection here of projects which I hope to start in the next year. And the first one is one that's not in this pile because it's way too big to fit. This is a first for the channel and in fact a first for me as well. It is the battleship HMS Prince of Wales in 1:350 scale from Tamiya. And yes, I am going to be having a go at a ship. It's something that I've never done before, but I've always wanted to. So 2022 is going to be the year that I do my first ship. As you can see, this thing is massive. The Prince of Wales was one of the ships which took part in action against the Bismarck in early 1941. In late 1941, the Prince of Wales was sent as part of Force Z to reinforce the British in Malaya, who of course were under attack from the Japanese, and ultimately this is where she met her fate, being sunk near Kuantan in Malaysia, or Malaya as it was at the time, by Japanese aircraft. We can see here on the side of the box we've got two possible paint schemes. The relatively plain grey scheme as she was completed in 1941, and then the more elaborate camo scheme as she was in Singapore in 1941 before she was sunk. So we'll have a quick look inside the box. We've got two instruction books. One is in English, one is in Japanese. Let's read the English one. Got a nice amount of detail here about the ship itself. And there you can see that map of Malaya and the route of Force Z and the position of their ultimate demise. This instruction book seems to take a slightly different approach to regular Tamiya instructions. It just looks slightly different. There's a little bit of colour coding going on and so on. I need to look at that quite carefully before I start to build it. In the box here we have what looks like a stand, and then of course the box is dominated by this huge single piece hull. Absolutely massive. I honestly have no idea whether or not that is normal for ship kits to have a single piece hull. If you know, then let me know in the comments. We've got this mid-deck section here. I'm not going to unbag these sprues, but you can see we've got various sprues with lifeboats on and turrets on and so on. Some decals at the bottom there with various flags, and then these two upper deck sections here. And there's a bit of a wood grain texture on these. So these obviously slot in like so. So yes, that's going to be one of my projects, the HMS Prince of Wales in 1:350 scale. Okay, now for something a bit smaller, at least in scale model form, but still quite unusual. We have Tamiya's Mesozoic creatures. So a set of dinosaurs here from the Mesozoic era. I love this box art here, and especially on the sides, or the colours here, the interpretation of them. Not many pieces here. Each dinosaur is basically in two main sections. As you can see, you've got halves there, and then perhaps a couple or four legs to put on each one. I just thought this was quite an unusual kit. That's what drew me to it. And of course, this is a great opportunity for a diorama. I'm going to put this somewhere in some kind of jungle diorama. And of course, although we know a lot about dinosaurs, there's quite a lot that we don't know, and therefore it gives us a little bit of an opportunity for some creativity there, particularly in terms of the flora that might be in my diorama. There might be a small problem here with historical accuracy, as some of these creatures were only found in North America, others were found in Asia, Mongolia, so I might end up having some dinosaurs that didn't actually live together in my diorama here, but I'm not too fussed about that aspect of historical accuracy. So that should be a nice fun kit to build and a nice change from aircraft and armour. Really looking forward to this one. Okay, next up is something new for me again. This time it's the company that's new, Sukemura. I think that's how you say it. I've been after this kit for a long time. This is the Horton 229 Flying Wing. I really wanted this in 1:48 scale, but it's so hard to find, and it goes for ridiculous prices online, that eventually I settled for this 1/72 scale version, which also includes a 1:144 scale version in the box as well. I know that Revell do a 1/48 scale version of this kit, and it's a bit easier to find, but my understanding is the detail is much better on this kit, particularly as you'll see in a moment the internal structure, and I want to have this aircraft in a kind of maintenance sort of setup with the internal structure exposed. I don't think that's possible on the Revell kit. Now this isn't actually a what-if aircraft. The box art does show the Horton intercepting a stream of Lancaster bombers. It never quite got that far, but there were 2 or 3 prototypes made and flown during the final stages of World War II. So let's have a quick look around the box, and you can see here on the side, first of all, those 2 versions, the 2 different scales. And then on the other side here, this is the detail I was talking about earlier. So you can build this kit with the outer coverings removed, and we can see the engines, the internal ribbing and so on. And I want to do that on at least one of the wings, I think. I think there's not a lot of point in building all of that and then covering it up. So I want to do something along those lines. I'm not quite sure what yet, but something along those lines. We'll look inside the box. I'm not going to take the pieces out of the cellophane, but hopefully you can see them. And you can see here, even in 1/72 scale, that's a fairly impressive wingspan. Not as big as something like a Lancaster, but definitely bigger than your average fighter. In fact, I am going to take this piece here out of the bag so you can see the detail. This is all that internal sort of tubing and pipe work that I was talking about earlier. This looks pretty decent, maybe a small amount of flash. One thing that's definitely going to be difficult here is removing this from the sprue without damaging it. You can see those sprue gates there are quite thick, and the pieces themselves are quite thin, definitely thinner than the sprue gates. So that's going to require some very careful removing when I come around to building this. Just a random piece here on its own, that's obviously part of the front of the fuselage. Let's open this bag as well. This bag obviously contains that internal detail there. So that's got what I'm guessing are fuel tanks, and then the ribbing around those. I think on the 48 scale version, those might be separate, the fuel tanks might be separate, but at this scale they're all one piece. That's going to make painting a little bit more tricky, but I'm sure I can manage. And it would be so nice to have that exposed as well. There's a couple of awkwardly placed ejector pin marks there, but hopefully we can get around that. You see here we have the engines, 2 jet engines on this aircraft, and then those outer body parts. Finally, in this separate bag we have the 1:144 scale version. Only a few parts, but still a decent sized aircraft, and obviously that gives me a chance to use a couple of different camo schemes there. Talking of which, let's look at the instructions. Well, first of all, if you haven't seen these kits before, the instructions are pretty crowded. I'm not quite sure how they do this, because the diagrams should be fairly self-explanatory, but every step also has sort of text on it and lots of labels as well, and it's a little bit overwhelming actually. If you look there, for example, at step 2, considering there are only, 3 parts involved, we've got a sort of a tie between 2 languages, the diagram showing 2 parts going together, another part added onto them, a zoomed in version of that, and then a left side and a top side paint diagram on that as well. That's quite a lot to have in one step. It is good, of course. They're not just saying paint the engine silver, they're giving you lots of different colours and let you picking out all that detail. So it's useful to have the detail, it's just presented in quite a crowded way. Let's go to those paint schemes. We don't get a lot of help from the instructions, but of course, this was a prototype, so we could paint it basically any way we want. And of course I've got 2 versions, so if you've got any suggestions of how you might want me to paint this, what might look good, do feel free to leave some comments below. I'm always happy to hear suggestions. Okay, next up is a kit that I'm really excited about building. I've been looking forward to this for a while. It's quite a hard kit to get hold of actually. This is the German, let me try and say the name, Werkstatt Kraftwagen Type 0330. Those of you who know your vehicles will know that this actually is a Russian vehicle which has been commandeered by German forces. And what I like about this, it's just a little bit unusual really, isn't it? It's basically a mobile workshop, and being mini art, they've included loads and loads of accessories in here as well. So even from the box art you can see we've got welding cylinders and what looks like a compressor down there. We've got jerry cans, we've got fuel drums and tools and so on. And the back of this vehicle basically has basically a full interior. So we've got all that set up as a workshop there. I've only got one sort of colour suggestion here, an unknown Wehrmacht unit from 1942. I'm guessing that conversions like this were really field conversions of vehicles. They probably weren't that common. So there's a lot of leeway here in terms of how I paint it. Though I do quite like the German grey scheme. It's been a while since I've done something like that. Let's have a look inside the box, and as is standard with mini art, all the sprues are in one bag and really tightly packed. This is not always the best idea. I'm not going to undo this bag right now, but look at how many sprues are in here. It's absolutely insane. There's multiple sprues on the same level, there's multiple copies of many sprues. There's a lot of pieces in here. Some photo etch there as well, in a nice little cardboard envelope to keep it flat. Let's look at the instructions. So there you can see the sprue map and just exactly how many sprues we get. I mean, the sprue map takes 2 pages, so that's a lot of plastic. Fairly standard layout for modern mini art kits, and you can see they're nice and clear. Lots of detail, even on the underside of the vehicle there's plenty of detail there. Even in the engine. And then I love this bit here as we move on to the rear and the tools. Look at all this incredible detail. It's going to take quite a lot of patience to build it, I think. We've got like a grinder here and a vise here, and they're made of sort of 4 or 5 parts each, and they're going to be tiny. So that's going to require quite a lot of focus, but hopefully the result should be worthwhile. There are some photo etch tools in here as well. That's fantastic. It's great to see. I really don't like it when you get something like a truck that's used for maintenance and it's just got no tools or equipment in the back of it. It doesn't feel real, it doesn't feel lived in. So it's great that mini art include all these things. And of course, there'll be great opportunities there for weathering as well. We've got these workbenches in the back. We're going to have maybe lots of chipping on that, damage to the wood, maybe some spilt paint, things like this, oil, grease. So that should be a really fun project. Having said that, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to include it in anything. This is obviously not a maintenance vehicle for sort of tank maintenance or anything like that. It seems to me it's more for minor field work, but I'm not really sure what. But I don't think it'd be right to have this with fixing a Panzer IV or something. So I'm not sure how I'm going to include this in a diorama, but I am going to have a bit of a workshop scene going on there somehow. If you can think of what I could include it with, as always, leave a comment below. I read all comments, I try to reply to all of them as well. But yeah, really excited about this kit. What's up next? We have got this cruiser tank from Tamiya. I know this is another Tamiya kit, I've already shown you 2 Tamiya kits, but I really like this tank. There are 2 marking options, both in the same brown paint scheme, and that's for the Royal Marines on D-Day, June 1944. There is one aspect of this kit which is new to me. Let's have a look inside and we'll find it. So we've got our figures there and our various turret pieces, wheels, top of the hull. We have got rubber band tracks. I don't mind these, to be honest. I know a lot of people don't like them. I really don't mind rubber band tracks at all. Got the lower hull. And then finally, here we go, we've got a little bit of aftermarket photo etch. I don't normally buy photo etch for my kits. Obviously, if there's some in there, I use it. You don't typically get it with Tamiya kits. But I bought this because it is the deep wading trunks. And I want to have this vehicle, well, basically coming out of the ocean on D-Day. So here's what we get with our photo etch. Single-sided instructions. And basically we have this box at the top which goes around the rear engine intake. Some brackets, one that goes around the driver's hatch as well. I need to study these instructions a bit more carefully, they're not 100% clear. But basically that photo etch trunk is the main thing. Could I have made this myself out of some very thin styrene? Yeah, possibly, or even out of some brass sheet I could have done, but I decided just to buy the photo etch in this particular case. Okay, and last but not least, what do we have? It's this huge kit, the Sunderland Mark III seaplane. I love this box art here, really classic artwork I think, really dramatic scene here. We've got this RAF crew here in their lifeboat, being picked up here by this Sunderland. Unfortunately, the figures and the lifeboat, life raft, are not included in the kit, which is a bit of a pain. I'm not sure where I'm going to get those from either. I've had a quick look and I can't find any. I need to have a more detailed look. Also, I was lucky enough to acquire a 3D printer for Christmas, so I'm not sure about the actual figures, but it might be possible for me to 3D print a life raft there. I would love to have this landed, well, basically to recreate the scene in the box art and do a little bit of that water effect as well. I think that'd be a great way to represent this aircraft. I mean, of course, this is huge. I saw one of these in the RAF Museum in London recently, and, well, I'll show you a few pictures. It's just so big. Very imposing aircraft. Anyway, let's have a look inside. And the decals tell us quite a bit about the marking schemes. So of course we've got RAF roundels there in the top left. In the top right, I believe they are ones which were used in Asia. They don't have the red because the red was confused with the Japanese markings. To be honest, I'm not sure what the bottom right roundels are. We'll have a look in a minute on the instructions for that one. We do get some photo etch in this kit, and that represents various things, including the aerials along the spine of the aircraft. And if we move the instructions and the other sprues out of the way, look at the size of this aircraft. Isn't that crazy? That is absolutely huge. Hugely long aircraft, hugely tall as well. In fact, let's take these out of the bag and have a look at them in more detail. Okay, there we go. And that, from nose to tail, that takes up almost the entire depth there of my cutting mat. This is a big aircraft. And look how high the tail is there as well. This is going to be a really impressive model when it's finished. And looking at the wings as well, obviously 4-engine aircraft, so there are going to be some big wings. A good amount of detail there. I've got lots of rivet details in the wing. quite pronounced, but I think it'll look okay once there's some primer and some paint are down. And if we imagine how that's going to be when it's together, this is going to be a big, big aircraft. Very impressive. I hope it goes together well. I won't open the other bags, but you can see here we've got various, I guess there's elevators there, we've got some floats there as well, some propellers. Looks like some wheels as well. Did this aircraft have wheels? I'm not sure. Looking at the instructions, I like the way we've got what seems like a couple of options here for the instrument panel. It seems that we can have the decal version at the top, or we can have a version which looks like a slightly different decal, and then perhaps some photo etch going over the top to sandwich that in. It's hard to tell there, but that looks like a nice option. We've got seat belts there. Are they decals or are they photo etch? I feel like they're decals, but I'm not 100% sure. Some good cockpit detail here as well, and including behind the cockpit. Lots of glass work there, it looks like. Lots of windows in the side of the hull. Is it the hull or the fuselage? I think it's the hull on a flying boat. Various options we have. So for example, we can have it with the anchor stowed or the anchor released. And we can have the bombs deployed or not as well. I seem to remember, I saw one of these in RAF Hendon recently, and I seem to remember thinking that the bombs are stored inside the body of the aircraft, and then they move outwards when they are ready to be deployed. I don't think I'm making that up. Right, so let's look at the paint schemes. So the first one is the classic RAF dark slate grey and extra dark sea grey on top with the white sides. And here we go, here are those light blue and dark blue roundels. This is Ceylon, which is Sri Lanka today, so this would be what, the Indian Ocean, wouldn't it? Patrolling the Indian Ocean. I do like those roundels, but maybe the overall solid grey scheme is a little bit less interesting. Over the page we've got another slate and sea grey scheme with different markings this time, and then another one below that, very similar but with a different coloured underside, and that's Senegal, so that would be, oh yeah, they're French markings, aren't they? Yeah, so those roundels there, French versions, for a French version. Top of the next page, what have we got? Another British version, very similar scheme again, and then, okay, at the bottom of the page there, an Australian version. That's what the white and dark blue roundels are. Overall foliage green. Okay, so we've got some good options there then. We've got basically four paint schemes. We've got the extra dark sea grey and the dark slate with white undersides. We've got the same but with the sky green undersides, both those RAF versions. Then we've got a French version of the same thing there. And then we've got the Australian version, overall foliage green. I do like the Australian version, and I do want to do an Australian aircraft at some point. However, that's an awfully big aircraft to paint just one colour, so I'm not too sure about that one. I quite like the two-tone camo on top with the sky greenish shade underneath. Should we do a French version? French or British? We'll see. But I do want to do an Australian aircraft at some point as well. I'll have to think about that one. Again, if you've got any thoughts on that, then feel free to let me know in the comments below. And of course, these instructions are never comprehensive, so I may well just look up some different schemes and find, there's something else that takes my fancy there as well. Okay guys, so that was a quick preview of just some of the things coming up in 2022 on my channel. There's at least one other kit which I'm definitely going to be building fairly soon, which I haven't talked about yet, and in fact you can see it on the screen, but that's going to stay a secret for now. And of course, as I said earlier, I am going to try to finish the kits that I've started previously, so especially that Ram Tiger. I really like that Ram Tiger kit. It's just at the moment I'm not really feeling it, and I'm a big believer obviously that modelling should be fun. I'm not going to push myself to do something if I'm not really feeling it at the moment. It will one day it will pop back into my mind, and I'll get up and I'll think I really want to finish that Ram Tiger today, and I will. Another thing I want to do more of in 2022 is to do some more dioramas, and actually that ram tiger is going to go in one as well. Hopefully the dinosaurs that I showed you will do too, and even of course the Sunderland which I just showed you. So guys, that's the end of me rambling on a bit about what I am going to build. I'm going to go now and actually build something. All that remains is for me to wish you a very happy new year. Let's hope 2022 is better than 2021 has been. Have fun modelling guys, and I will see you in a video very soon. Thanks for watching guys.